Good day, you are welcome to today's lesson. In this lesson, we'll be talking about the next type of selector, which we call the pseudo element selector. Pseudo element selector. I am Asante Patrick Romodo, and I will be your facilitator for this lesson. Pseudo element selector. Let me clean this. Okay, pseudo element selector. Okay, let me use S for selector. Pseudo element selector. That's fine. We learned of pseudo class selectors in our previous video. In this video, we are talking about what pseudo element selector. We learned the meaning of pseudo in our previous video, and it is applicable also here. So pseudo element is what? A false element. It is actually an element that we didn't really included in our HTML file or HTML document, but with the power of CSS, we will try to create virtually an element inside of what? Our HTML file. And this is done with the help of what? A pseudo element. This is done with the help of what? A pseudo element. Okay. So let's take it a bit further. What is a pseudo element? Pseudo element selector is a selector that helps or that behaves as if a new element has been added to the HTML. It behaves as if a new element has been added to the HTML, which in reality or in the HTML file that we would be talking about, we didn't actually include that element. Okay, that element. So let's take an example. Let's say we have the paragraph element. No, let me change you. Let's say we have the paragraph element P, for instance, and let's say we are learning. Let's give it some content. Okay, let's say we are, let me clean there. We are learning. We are learning. Okay, then I'll close it. I don't want to write anything too long. That will take much of our time here. No, that's not the reason why I'm here. Okay, so we are learning. This is what our paragraph contains. With the help of a pseudo element, now this is what this inside of our HTML. Let's go inside of our CSS. In CSS, how do we, let's say, apply certain things or certain elements or styles over here? Okay, so in CSS, actually, if we want to select a part of an element, you use an inline element. Then also, so for instance, if I want to make learning inside of my paragraph, or learning which is a content of my paragraph element, bold, then I will use a strong element. So let's say strong, or maybe let's say I want to make it italic, then I will be using my EM element, my emphasis element, just to grab this. Then also, then I will close it here. Then also, okay, so let me write the real thing for a better understanding. Let's go to the next page. Okay, so let's say I have my paragraph element P. Then also, then I have this way is too big. We are, okay, we are learning. So I want learning to be in italics and also. So I will have to grab learning with what? The EM element, okay? The emphasis element. Then I'll come here and close my emphasis element before I close my what? Paragraph element. So this is what we have. Let me use this so that we go over it. I have my paragraph element over here. Inside of the paragraph element, I have we are learning, but I want learning to be in italics. So in that case, I use my EM word, my emphasis element, which is represented by EM. So EM grabs learning and I close it here. Then I'll come and close my paragraph element. So in that case, if I want to, let's say, access my EM element inside of CSS, let's go back. So inside of CSS, let's say in CSS, I would come and write, let's say EM, then I will just pass the declaration here. But this is too long and it wastes time. That's where pseudo element selector comes to our aid. Okay, so in that case, I wouldn't have to be writing my EM inside of this paragraph element. No. I don't have time. Okay, I don't have time at all. So let's see, how do we use a pseudo element to access learning in this case? So for instance, let's go back. We are inside of what? Our CSS. In CSS, okay? Inside of our CSS, we'll use a pseudo element. How do you represent a pseudo element? So pseudo element will be, let's say P. It is inside of our paragraph element. Then you take note, you need 2 colons to specify or tell the browser that you are using a pseudo element, okay? So 2 colons, the first one is here, then the next one, then maybe I'll write first line, then I'll pass my declaration accordingly. Okay, the first line will select if, let's say, my paragraph element contain 2 or more lines of a content or text or whatsoever be it. Then the first line, in this case, the first line will be selected. The first line can be used or can be achieved with whether any inline element, EM for example, strong for example, and the list goes on. Span is also there. So I can achieve this with what? Span, but I don't want to write span inside of my what? HTML. So I'll just come here, then first line will assume that there is what? An element over there. So whatever declaration I pass here will be applied only to the first line of my paragraph element. Don't worry, if my paragraph element contains only 1 line, it will still be applied to that line. Okay, if contains only 1 line, it will still be applied to that line alone. Okay, it will still be applied to that line alone. So that's it. This brings us to the end of pseudo element lesson, and I'm glad you understand. If you don't worry at all. When you watch the practical video of this, you would understand and understand better. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like the channel and the videos accordingly. Thank you. Bye bye.